You're watching Fox Fort Wayne News, first at 10.
A search is underway for 3 inmates who escaped from a Missouri prison. One of the inmates, a convicted murderer, and officials fear the fugitives are heading across state lines.
These are the men on the loose. 57-year-old Carlos Sarmiento, convicted of first-degree murder. 34-year-old Timothy Bador, who is being held for assault, and 26-year-old Nicholas McClary, who is being held on an escape attempt.
We're either guessing they either went north or south, or a combination, possibly split up.
Daviess County Sheriff Ben Becerra says the escapees could be headed to Kansas City or possibly Iowa.
Immediately following when we received the information, we went door to door throughout the town.
This isn't the first time the people of Pattonsburg, a town of 260, have heard this news.
This is the third instance.
And all 3 times in the past 5 years, the inmates have escaped from this part of the jail, the recreation area. Jail Administrator Larry Hadley explains what happened Sunday night.
They went out to recreation at 6:43 p.m. They came back in from rec at 7:16 p.m. We did a body count inside the jail at 7:30. By the time we recounted, it was probably 10 till 8 when the authorities were alerted.
Which means they had a 50-minute head start before deputies started the search. But even more upsetting to Hadley, the fact that 3 officers were patrolling inside this small rec area.
Unfortunately, is why I shake my head.
And yet, Hadley says none of those officers realized these 3 prisoners had escaped.
I guess your policy is only as good as people enforcing them.
Those officers are now on administrative leave, and the 2 accomplices who were taken into custody are charged with aiding the escape of a prisoner. The sheriff says he hopes the women will lead them to the wanted men.
And that was Fox's Stephanie Hockeridge reporting. The deadly cholera epidemic in Haiti might be slowing down. During the last 2 days, 6 deaths were reported. That's fewer than health officials expected. About 260 people have died of cholera in the last week. Most of those victims lived in 2 rural provinces, not in Port-au-Prince, the capital. Cholera is usually caused by poor sanitation. More than 1 million Haitians left homeless by the earthquake this year are living in tent camps with no clean water. The United Nations is urging the U.S. to end its nearly 50-year trade embargo against Cuba. A majority of the member nations voted to end economic, commercial, and financial embargoes. Cuba calls the restrictions an act of genocide. The U.S. and Israel were the only nations voting against that.
Those who charge the United States sanctions as being the cause of deprivation among the Cuban people should be reminded that the United States holds no restriction on humanitarian aid to Cuba and remains Cuba's largest provider of food.
The trade ban has been in effect since 1962. This is the 19th time the majority has voted for the U.S. to end Cuba's embargo. Hundreds of French citizens gathered to protest the government's plan to raise the retirement age. Students demonstrated in front of the Senate in central Paris as part of a nationwide day of protests. President Nicolas Sarkozy's reform plan would change the retirement age from 60 to 62. Sony stock soared today on rumors that Apple might buy the electronics giant. It all seemed to start with a blogger for Barron's, the business magazine. He quoted Apple CEO Steve Jobs as saying he sees 1 or more strategic opportunities in the future. Jobs never mentioned Sony, but the blogger thought it would be a pretty good choice. After Sony stock shot up 3% yesterday, he issued a clarification. Apple buying Sony was the blogger's idea, not Steve Jobs. First Lady Michelle Obama encouraged women at the Women's Conference to act on being the architect of change for U.S. military families. Michelle Obama reflecting on her reluctance to get into politics while trying to juggle motherhood and adapt to change.
That there's so much more that each of us can do, and there's so much more that each of us should do right in our own communities. Because it's not just enough to be proud. It's not enough just to feel grateful. It's time for each of us to act.
And 3 years ago, during her husband's campaign, the First Lady served on a panel with 4 other wives of presidential candidates. 1 week remains before the midterm elections, and some new Fox polls show some races are getting tighter. Fox News correspondent Craig Boswell reports from Washington.
After a scuffle outside the Kentucky Senate debate where a Rand Paul supporter stepped on a MoveOn.org volunteer, the candidate urged volunteers to stick to the issues. Inside, during Monday's debate, the candidates sparred over policy and an ad run by Democrat Jack Conway, who trails the Republican.
You don't attack a man's dog and you don't attack a man's horse. But I will say this.
You can't attack a man's religion, right?
Well, I questioned your actions,
that's okay, right?
I questioned your actions, not your faith.
It's the Republican losing ground in Connecticut. A new Fox poll shows Democrat Richard Blumenthal leading Linda McMahon now by 11 points. Just 2 weeks ago, it was a 6-point spread. In early voting, Democrats are off to a stronger than expected start, casting more ballots than Republicans, but both sides are predicting victory.
Across the country, Republicans are gaining. We're in the lead. We're going to take the House of Representatives.
The Democrats will keep the Senate. The House is going to be very close. Democrats could keep it by a margin of 3, 4, 5 seats.
New Fox polls show West Virginia's Senate race within the margin of error between Republican John Racy and Democrat Joe Manchin. In Illinois, the battle to win President Obama's old Senate seat is also a 2-point difference. Republican Mark Kirk slightly leads Democrat Alexei Giannoulias. President Obama campaigns in Illinois this weekend during a swing through 4 states he won 2 years ago. In Washington, Craig Boswell, Fox News.
Shopping at a secondhand store is all about finding discarded treasures at a great price. But a woman shopping at the North Tacoma Goodwill got more than she bargained for. Fox's Maria Arcega-Dunn has details.
Erica Gomez was perusing the shelves of North Tacoma Goodwill in search of collectibles.
Found a box. It was just a plain box. I thought it was a recipe box.
But what she found was not what she was looking for.
We opened it up. Sure enough, with some ashes in there. I was shocked. I was like,
I think we were all a little surprised to see what was inside.
Goodwill spokesman Matthew Ehrlich says the box is definitely an urn of some type.
We don't know whether these are human remains or remains of a pet, but we do know they're ashes.
Unfortunately, Ehrlich says it's not unusual for Goodwill to receive human remains from time to time.
We've collected more than 55 million pounds of gently used clothes and household items. Sometimes the box gets put in with other things and it arrives here at our store.
For now, the store will hold on to the box in hopes someone will claim it.
What we have is an existing policy that allows us to contact a mortuary because we want to, again, make sure that the remains are respectfully handled, and that's what we're trying to do in this case.
As for Erica,
I almost wanted to cry because it was sad. Why, how could somebody end up at Goodwill and not know that what they're giving away?
She's still shaken by her thrift store discovery.
It would make me feel a lot better if it was somebody's doggy rather as opposed to somebody's grandpa. The main thing is that I wish somebody finds who they belong to, or I just hope they get the proper burial or something. That's what I really want.
Maria Arcega-Dunn reporting. American Idol is in the country music capital looking for some good new talent. Plenty of wannabe idols got up early and got in line in Nashville looking for a shot at stardom. This is the second round of auditions in Nashville. The first was last summer. One very together teen refuses to feel the pressure.
What are you singing?
I'm singing Somebody to Love by Queen.
That is a big song.
Yeah, it is a big song.
Are you nervous? You're 15 years old.
Not at all.
Not one bit.
You might see her. American Idol returns to Fox this January. The most famous invertebrate in the world has died, leaving a legacy in sports prognostication. That's next on Fox Fort Wayne News, 1st at 10.